After massive Iranian missile strikes on Israel, combat alert was raised across all branches of the United States military.
Air Force units, Marine Corps, fighter squadrons all received the signal for combat readiness. The order went out immediately.
Everything starts moving at once. Marines were transported from their barracks to the airfield by bus. Upon arrival, they began loading
into a C-17 Globemaster III waiting on the tarmac with its rear ramp down. At the same time, cargo handlers were bringing in additional equipment. Portable generators, ammunition crates, communications gear, medical supplies. Everything was strapped down inside the cargo bay alongside the Marines.
This aircraft was scheduled to make one stop at another military base to pick up more personnel and equipment before heading to the Middle East with a full load.
The buildup was massive. Every piece of essential gear was being mobilized to support the incoming strike force.
The C-17's versatile cargo hold allows for the rapid deployment of both troops and heavy machinery simultaneously.
Safety is paramount. Every pallet is double-checked to ensure nothing shifts during the long transoceanic flight.
Loadmasters coordinate with the ground crew to balance the weight of the aircraft for optimal fuel efficiency.
Advanced navigation systems allow the crew to bypass storm fronts and maintain a direct heading to the theater.
With the cargo secured and the crew briefed, the mission is now officially underway.
Takeoff is a display of raw power as over 200 tons of steel and human resolve take flight.
Above the clouds, the crew settles into a rhythm, monitoring systems for the long hours ahead.
Meanwhile, at another location on the base, soldiers were in the hangar going through their personal gear. They packed their duffel bags and rucksacks
with everything they would need for an indefinite deployment. Uniforms, boots, hygiene kits, personal items, all packed and ready.
These soldiers were not going on a short rotation. They were being sent to a military base in the Middle East for an unknown period of time. Nobody had a return date. At dusk, the order came to prepare for boarding. The soldiers formed up in columns outside the hangar.
They began marching toward their assigned aircraft. They walked up the ramps and took their seats inside the C-17s.
The movement was rhythmic and purposeful. Each aircraft was filled to capacity with both personnel and the tools of their trade.
Loadmasters did final checks on cargo and head counts. The ramps closed. One by one, the aircraft taxied to the runway and took off.
Disappearing into the darkening sky, they began the long journey across the Atlantic toward a region on the brink of conflict. The movement was rhythmic and purposeful. Each aircraft was filled to capacity with both personnel and the tools of their trade. Loadmasters did final checks on cargo and head counts. The logistics of such a rapid deployment require absolute precision. For many, this was the beginning of an uncertain chapter. The weight of the mission was reflected in the quiet atmosphere of the cabin. Despite the tension, morale remained high. These crews were trained for exactly this moment, to be the first line of response.
1, 2, 3, ready to go! Let's do this!
The ramps closed. One by one, the aircraft taxied to the runway and took off, disappearing into the darkening sky.
Destination: the Middle East. The U.S. Air Force was now in full motion, projecting power across thousands of miles.
This was not just a transport mission. It was a clear signal of deterrent strength in a rapidly evolving conflict.
One by one, the aircraft taxied to the runway and took off, disappearing into the darkening sky.
The buildup was unprecedented, reflecting the urgency of the situation unfolding thousands of miles away.
The C-17 fleet provides the heavy lift capability necessary to move entire combat units at a moment's notice. Every crew member knew the stakes. This was the result of years of training meeting real-world necessity.
Ramps dropped. Soldiers filed out. Vehicles were unchained and driven off. Cargo pallets were pulled out by forklifts.
Everything moved at an accelerated pace. These same aircraft would be turning around and flying back for more trips.
picking up additional soldiers from other bases across the United States and delivering them here.
The speed of the operation was critical. Every minute saved on the ground meant more boots in the field, faster. This base, once a quiet outpost, was rapidly transforming into a massive logistics and operations hub. For the soldiers stepping off the ramp and onto the tarmac, this base in the Middle East was now home. Heavy armor followed the infantry, providing the necessary protection and firepower for the mission ahead. The aircraft would not stay long. Once empty, it was already prepping for its return journey to pick up the next wave.
They grabbed their bags, followed the directions from base personnel, and headed toward their assigned quarters.
The buildup was underway, and more flights were already inbound. The theater was changing by the hour.
The base was now a 24-hour operation. Logistics teams worked in shifts to ensure the turnaround time for each aircraft was kept to a minimum.
Supplies ranged from essential rations to critical spare parts for the fighter squadrons arriving in the coming days.
Temporary living quarters were rapidly filled as the base population doubled in less than 48 hours. Security was tightened across the entire sector. This wasn't just a transport hub, it was now a primary target in a high-tension region.
Maintenance crews from the 15th Wing were already on the ground, performing gas and go inspections to keep the air bridge open.
Command and control coordinated the influx of forces. Every arrival was part of a meticulously timed sequence to maximize defensive posture.
Combat air patrols began immediately. The skies over the base were no longer just for transport. They were now contested space.
At a separate airfield, mechanics were preparing fighter jets that would be used over the coming days for sustained strikes.
Every aircraft got a full inspection. Avionics checked, radar systems tested, wiring and electronics gone over panel by panel.
Missiles and guided bombs were loaded onto the pylons. Engine covers were removed, intakes inspected, fuel systems checked.
These fighters needed to be in perfect condition for continuous combat sorties over the next several days. The process repeats for every fighter on the line. One aircraft after another goes through the same sequence.
Fuel, weapons, airframe, avionics, flight controls, engines. By the time the pilots arrive for their briefing,
every jet on that ramp is fueled, armed, inspected, and cleared to fly. The machine of war is fully greased.
The crews are placed on full combat alert, ready to respond to any further escalation in the region.
By the time the pilots arrive for their briefing, every jet on that ramp is fueled, armed, inspected, and cleared to fly.
U.S. Air Force C-17 crews and fighter squadrons have been placed on full combat alert. The mission is clear: readiness at all costs.
As tensions in the Middle East reach a boiling point, the logistical backbone of the U.S. military is fully mobilized.
Across the Atlantic, more flights are inbound, carrying the personnel and equipment needed for a sustained presence. There is no set timeline for their return. They are prepared for an indefinite stay in a region on the brink.
Strategic assets are being repositioned to provide maximum coverage and response capability for any further escalation.
Combat alert raised. Mission status active. End of report.